What if you could become completely unrecognizable in just 30 days without changing your face, your clothes, or your job? Here's the truth. Most men don't fail because they're weak. They fail because they wait. Wait for motivation. Wait for the right time. Wait for life to get easier. But life never does. And motivation? It's a liar, a fleeting spark, gone before you move. The Stoics never waited. They didn't ask, "Do I feel like it?" They asked, "What's required of me right now?" That's what this video is about. How to train like a Stoic man, quietly, daily, intentionally, until the world no longer recognizes you. Not because you've become louder or flashier, but because there's something different in the way you walk, speak, and respond. A quiet power, a calm confidence, a presence no one can ignore. In this world of distractions and ego chasing, the man who lives with emotional self-control, quiet strength, and Stoic discipline stands out. If you've been feeling stuck, lost, or disconnected from your purpose, you are not alone. But you do have a choice. Today marks the line. You either keep drifting, or you begin the 30-day path toward becoming unshakable. So stay with me. What you're about to learn is not tips. They are timeless principles, daily actions, and powerful truths that reshape the man you are. If this speaks to you, like the video, subscribe for more, and say it out loud. This is training. 1. Choose daily discomfort on purpose. Every man wants strength, but few are willing to earn it. And the ones who do? You can tell the moment they enter the room. It's not their voice, it's their stillness. It's the weight they carry in silence. That presence doesn't come from comfort. It's forged in quiet, deliberate struggle, not grand gestures, just the decision to lean into what most people avoid. That's where it begins. Comfort is a liar. It makes you soft, and it makes you forget who you are. You think you're resting, but you're decaying slowly. Every time you hit snooze, choose the easier path, or avoid the uncomfortable conversation, you're not just delaying action, you're training your body and mind to retreat. You're rehearsing weakness. Discomfort, on the other hand, is not punishment, it's preparation. It's your real gym. A Stoic doesn't wait for life to push him. He pushes himself first. You don't need to move mountains to start. You just need to stop running up the hill in front of you. That hill might look like getting out of bed on the first alarm, even when your body begs for 5 more minutes. It might look like taking the cold shower, walking instead of driving, and speaking the truth when your voice shakes. And yes, it will feel unnatural at first, because everything that builds real strength always does. But here's what changes everything. The moment you stop saying, "This hurts," and start saying, "This is training." When you say that, something shifts. The pain doesn't go away, but it gets purpose. The resistance becomes the ritual. You're no longer reacting like a victim, you're responding like a soldier. There's a man I knew who used to complain about everything: his job, his back, his wife, the cold. Life was always doing something to him. Then he started running 5 miles every morning before work. Not because he loved running, he hated it, but he did it because it made everything else feel easier. Arguments didn't rattle him, problems didn't feel personal. Why? Because discomfort became his baseline. He stopped fearing it. And once you stop fearing discomfort, you stop fearing most of life. This isn't about suffering for the sake of it. It's about recognizing that every day you avoid a challenge, you shrink a little. You compromise. You lose clarity, then courage, then direction. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius didn't complain about cold baths or hard nights. He trained his mind to embrace them. Musonius Rufus didn't avoid hardship, he sought it out. Not to prove anything to anyone else, but to become unshakable within himself. That's what daily discomfort does. It doesn't just build resilience. It builds a man who no longer negotiates with weakness. And you don't need approval. You don't need permission. You need one sentence. When it gets hard, and it will, you say it quietly, steadily, without emotion. This is training. You whisper it when you want to quit. You breathe it when the weight feels too heavy. You repeat it when your mind starts making excuses. And if you say it enough, you will start to believe it. More than that, you'll become it. What separates men who grow from men who stay stuck is simple. One chooses comfort, the other chooses friction. Not once, but every day. You're not being asked to change everything overnight. You're being asked to act differently today on purpose. Pick something small that makes you hesitate. Don't avoid it. Walk into it. Feel the resistance and say, "This is training." Then do it again tomorrow. That's how the man you were becomes the man no one sees coming. 2. Declare your new identity out loud. A man who speaks his future with clarity begins to walk in it before the world even sees it. He doesn't wait to be transformed before declaring who he is. He declares it first, then builds the life to match. That's how real change begins. Not in silence, not in secrecy, but in the decision to name who you are becoming and to speak it like a vow. The Stoic understands that words aren't decorations, they are commands to the soul. And when used with intention, they carve identity into stone. Your old self waits for confidence. Your new self creates it. One sentence can begin that creation. Not a wish, not a maybe, a statement. Firm, sharp, spoken like steel. I train like a Stoic, I will be unrecognizable. That is not poetry, that is engineering. It is the moment you stop living by habit and start living by principle. The man who says this aloud doesn't just believe something different. He starts becoming someone different. He begins to treat discomfort as discipline. He stops looking for applause and starts demanding more of himself. And slowly, the old patterns break. Not because they were fought, but because they were replaced. Many men never speak with power because they were never taught that silence is not the same as self-control. They confuse being quiet with being weak. So they hide what they want. They downplay their goals. They mumble their intentions and wonder why they never become solid. But when a man speaks with clarity, when he owns his path aloud, something inside aligns. Action follows identity. And when identity is spoken, reality bends to meet it. The world teaches you to stay small, to fit in, to not say things that sound too bold. But the Stoic does not seek permission to declare who he is. He doesn't whisper his values. He speaks them with quiet certainty and then lives them daily. Marcus Aurelius wrote his principles down every morning, not to publish, not for others, but to remind himself who he was choosing to be. That was his training, his discipline, his armor. Most men wait to speak until they feel confident, but confidence doesn't come from silence, it comes from alignment. You say it first, then you prove it in your actions, repeatedly. That's the Stoic way. Declare it, do it, become it. And when the voice in your head pushes back, when it says, "You're not that man yet," you don't argue, you repeat, "This is training." Because identity isn't a fixed title. It's a discipline reinforced by daily effort, one choice at a time. The mistake is thinking you need to feel different before you act differently. But feeling follows structure. Speak the structure, set the frame. Train your nervous system to obey your voice, not your fears. The world doesn't shape you. Your habits do. Your words, spoken with conviction, are the blueprint for every habit that follows. You are not here to blend in with your past. You are here to build forward into your future. Speak that future clearly. Every morning, every time you want to quit, every time you want to sink back into comfort, remind yourself, "I train like a Stoic. I will be unrecognizable." Say it until your breath catches rhythm with your discipline. Say it until your mind stops questioning and your actions start aligning. That is not motivation. That is transformation in motion. Because a man who speaks like this isn't trying to impress anyone. He's instructing his mind, he's commanding his actions, he's crafting his edge. And each repetition, each breath behind that sentence sharpens his resolve. So tomorrow, when the world tests you, before you respond, before you react, pause and say it again. Not loud, not for show. Just enough that your old self hears it crack. This is training. Then act like the man who meant it. 3. Zoom out. Use the cosmic perspective. A man who keeps his power doesn't fight every battle. He chooses which ones are worth his energy. He doesn't react to noise, he sees above it. The man who commands stillness, even when the world shakes around him, understands something most don't. His vision is not stuck at ground level. He's trained himself to zoom out, to see beyond today's insults, delays, and distractions. That's why he doesn't collapse over small things. He doesn't trade peace for attention. His strength lies in perspective. This kind of vision isn't natural, it's forged. Most men live eye-deep in problems. Bills, opinions, traffic, headlines. Every inconvenience becomes a threat. Every slight feels personal. And because they live close to everything, they lose control over anything. When you're too near, everything looks bigger than it really is. But when you rise, mentally, emotionally, you shrink the chaos. You begin to breathe again. That breath is where your power lives. To zoom out means to step outside the noise and ask a better question. Not why is this happening to me, but what does this look like from above? The Stoics called it the cosmic perspective. Marcus Aurelius practiced it every night, reminding himself that the events of his day were nothing compared to the vast order of the universe. Not to feel small, but to feel steady. When you see your anger from space, it dissolves. When you view your fear from above, it loses its grip. Because from that height, most problems lose their weight. But that mindset doesn't come to the man who always reacts. It belongs to the man who trains silence, who builds the habit of not rushing to respond, who learns to pause, not out of fear, but out of clarity. That pause is power. It's a kind of still armor. And while most men get pulled by every storm, the Stoic stands above it, not untouched, but unmoved. What keeps most men stuck isn't a lack of effort. It's emotional zoom. They're too close to what doesn't matter. Too invested in arguments they'll forget next week. Too reactive to moods, people, and timelines that have nothing to do with their mission. This blindness keeps them spinning. Stoicism pulls them back. It teaches detachment, not indifference. Focus, not retreat. When you learn to zoom out, you don't feel less, you feel wiser. And that wisdom becomes protection. Most men think strength is volume, but it's actually distance. When you create mental distance from your triggers, you gain dominion over them. That's how the Stoic navigates conflict, without being drained, loss without being shattered, success without being consumed. He doesn't fight for control, he trains for it, through perspective, through silence, through space. So when the day throws its usual chaos, missed emails, disrespect, failure, rejection, you don't bite. You breathe, you pause, you shift your lens. Ask yourself, does this still matter from 1,000 feet above? If it doesn't, drop it. If it does, carry it calmly. Don't allow what's irrelevant to decide who you become. What you practice, you become. Most men practice reactivity. They experience outrage, confusion, and stress. Every day they train themselves to be emotionally weak. But you can flip that script today. When the heat rises, when someone disrespects you, when life feels unfair, step back. Close your eyes, picture the sky, and say it under your breath. This is training. Then walk through the moment as a man who sees farther, not just louder. You don't have to solve the world. You don't have to fix the noise. You just have to stop shrinking your life to the size of your frustration. Rise above it, again and again, until your altitude becomes natural, until you don't just visit clarity, you live in it. That's what the world doesn't expect. A man who sees from above but moves with grounded purpose. A man who speaks little but perceives deeply. A man who's been tested, not by chaos, but by how calmly he can rise above it. 4. Reverse plan your days with intention. Clarity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing what matters, on purpose. The kind of man who walks into each day with precision doesn't fill his hours to feel productive. He starts with the end. He asks what deserves his energy, then cuts the rest. While the world rushes to react, he moves with deliberate control. Not faster, sharper. He's not busy, he's focused. That's the difference between motion and direction. One drains you, the other transforms you. To reverse plan your day means you stop starting with the to-do list and start with a truth. Not everything deserves you. Not every task is important. Not every fire is worth putting out. When you move without intention, distraction becomes your schedule. You say yes too fast. You jump into battles that don't matter. Then you wonder why you feel drained at the end of every day. Like you've done everything except the one thing that matters. That's what happens when you let your day pull you instead of you leading it. The Stoic doesn't wake up to respond. He wakes up to command. He knows his time is his most limited resource, and he protects it like a warrior guards the gate. His calendar reflects his values. His schedule mirrors his discipline. He doesn't run from task to task, hoping to feel accomplished. He identifies what would make the day meaningful, then reverse engineers every step from that point. That's not laziness, that's strategy. It's how you ensure your life aligns with your principles, not just your pressures. Many wasted years chasing busyness. They collect meetings, notifications, and noise. But when you ask them what they were building, they don't know. They ran out of breath before they ran out of distractions. Their days were full. Their minds were empty. That's the consequence of living by reaction. The Stoic flips the script. He starts with stillness, with a question. What outcome would make today a win internally, not socially? Then he removes everything that doesn't lead there. The mistake is thinking that more action equals more progress. It doesn't. Unfiltered action is exhaustion. Action without alignment is self-sabotage. The solution is daily discernment. You sit in silence, even if just for a few minutes. You choose your direction before the world chooses it for you. Then you act, not out of impulse, but from inner clarity. That's how your schedule becomes your sword, not your prison. That's how your attention becomes a weapon instead of a weakness. This doesn't mean abandoning responsibility. It means defining it correctly. Most men confuse urgency with importance. They sprint to every alert, drown in every task, and feel useful because they're always needed. But being needed isn't the same as being effective. The Stoic seeks depth, not noise. He simplifies. He subtracts what scatters him. He doesn't fear the empty space in his day. He designs it, protects it, fills it with what truly builds him. Reverse planning is not glamorous. No one applauds a man who removes 3 things from his plate before noon. But those quiet decisions build a life others admire but can't explain. The peace, the presence, the sharpness. It all starts here, with the refusal to let the world schedule your soul, with the strength to slow down and aim before moving, with the humility to ask, what actually matters? Each morning, start not with your phone but with your mind, not with your inbox, but with your intention. Define your outcome. Write it down if you must, then carve the path backward. Let each block of your time serve that outcome. If something doesn't fit, cut it. Not out of cruelty, but out of respect for yourself, for your mission, for the life you're building. This isn't a tactic. It's a mindset, one that doesn't just keep you busy, but makes you dangerous. And it begins again tomorrow. Same question, same clarity, one outcome. Everything else is noise. 5. Turn every enemy into a teacher. Someone who moves through conflict without losing control has trained deeper than most. Not because the world stopped testing him, but because he stopped wasting energy on what he can't control. He doesn't take every insult personally. He doesn't flinch when challenged. He doesn't fall into reactive anger because he's learned how to extract wisdom from tension. That's not passive. That's power. And it begins with one shift. Enemies are not enemies, they are instructors. Every push against you is pressure meant to sharpen. Every jab is a chance to refine what's soft in you, not with noise, with composure. This mindset flips the whole game. The modern world teaches emotional justice. If someone disrespects you, lash out, defend, get even. But the Stoic doesn't take the bait. He knows the one who controls his reaction controls the outcome. He's not trying to win a moment. He's building something stronger. Unshakable inner control. That control doesn't come from escaping conflict. It comes from leaning into it with clarity, using it to test the edges of your ego, your discipline, your patience. The difficult person becomes your training partner. The insult becomes a weight you lift. You don't avoid them. You train with them. That doesn't mean tolerating abuse. It means refusing to waste your strength on retaliation. When someone disrespects you, they hand you 2 options. Mirror their chaos or master your calm. Most choose the mirror. The Stoic chooses the mirror within. He studies his response. He uses the moment to measure how much control he really has. That's where the work begins. Not in changing others, but in stripping your dependence on their validation or apology. People spend years trying to fix the people who trigger them. It never works. The only thing you can truly shape is your reaction. And the reaction is a muscle. The more you use anger to respond, the more it owns you. But when you respond with grounded presence, when you don't explain yourself to prove you're right, when you let silence do the lifting, that's when power shifts. You become unreadable. You stop broadcasting your weaknesses. And when the world can't figure you out, it can't control you. The mistake most make is confusing reaction with strength. But anyone can yell. Anyone can explode. That's easy. What's rare is restraint. Not out of fear, out of dominance. You dominate the moment when you hold your frame. You train for that dominance every time you resist the urge to fire back, to defend your ego, to prove something. The man who doesn't flinch becomes untouchable. Not because he hides, but because he's trained beyond emotional impulse. That's what Stoicism refines. Emotional discipline so sharp it feels like stillness. You don't just respond less. You understand deeper. You listen without absorbing chaos. You observe without internalizing noise. You detach, not to disconnect, but to reclaim your mental space. That space is where self-respect grows. And no one gives that to you. You build it, one confrontation at a time. So next time someone provokes you, don't see them as a problem to solve. See them as resistance. You are not in a fight, you are in training. And training doesn't require applause. It requires repetition. Stand tall, stay quiet, breathe slower. Let them wonder why you don't collapse. Let them feel the edge of your silence. Say nothing, not because you're weak, but because you no longer need the noise to prove your worth. Every insult, every challenge, every unfair moment, they all give you something most people miss: a mirror. And what you do in front of that mirror determines who you become. Step back from the surface, look closer, then walk away stronger. Quiet, focused, unshaken. Because you didn't win with words, you won with control. That is training. That is transformation. That is what the Stoic lives for. 6. Remember, you could die today, memento mori. Each sunrise grants a choice, to drift through the day half present or to live it with precision. Those who walk with quiet fire in their eyes know something others avoid. Life isn't a given, it's a loan. And every breath is on borrowed time. This clarity doesn't make them grim, it makes them focused. When you live as if this day could be your last, you stop wasting it trying to prove yourself to people who don't matter, or chasing things that never fill you. You begin to protect your time, your energy, your peace. You begin to sharpen. Memento mori does not mean fearing death. It means anchoring life. It means remembering that every delay, every excuse, every someday is a silent surrender. The man who sees time clearly doesn't race to do everything. He slows down to do the right things. He speaks with more weight, listens with more presence, and chooses his path with more care. That's what Stoics practiced. Not cold detachment, but fierce clarity. A refusal to sleepwalk through days they could never get back. But most people do sleepwalk. They postpone purpose. They live on autopilot, waiting for the weekend, for retirement, for the perfect moment to start. And by the time they look up, their life has passed without their full attention. The tragedy isn't death, it's the unlived days leading to it. You weren't built to drift, you were built to direct. And that starts with knowing this day could be the last one you ever command. This perspective doesn't paralyze, it liberates. When death is no longer a distant theory but a near certainty, the noise falls away. That petty argument no longer owns your mood. That missed opportunity no longer defines you. You start seeing every hour as a battleground for presence. You stop giving your mind away to trivialities. Instead of chasing stimulation, you chase meaning. And meaning doesn't scream. It sits quietly inside the things we often overlook. How you move, how you hold eye contact, how you show up when no one's watching. The mistake is thinking you have time. Thinking tomorrow is promised. That illusion breeds softness. It makes discipline optional. But when you bring mortality into the frame, hesitation burns off like fog. You wake up with a sharpened edge. You speak what matters. You act on the hard thing now, not later. You stop bargaining with time because you realize you have no leverage. Time doesn't care how tired you are. It moves, whether you use it or not. The Stoic use death not to fear, but to reflect. What deserves energy? What doesn't? Who do I need to forgive now, not later? What am I delaying that matters more than my comfort? These aren't abstract questions. They are daily drills for the man who trains his mind as seriously as his body. He wakes up and looks mortality in the eye. Not for drama, but for direction. You don't need a reminder that you'll die. You need a structure that reflects it. Start by removing the empty noise from your morning. Replace it with a single statement. If today is all I have, I will not waste it. Write it. Whisper it. Let it shape your decisions. Let it burn through excuses. That's not morbid. That's warrior logic. That's how clarity begins, not with a plan, but with presence. Those who wait to face death never live fully. Those who live with it in view start choosing better: what to carry, what to let go, how to respond when tested. You're not here to accumulate, you're here to awaken. Don't just exist longer, live deeper, speak like you mean it. Move like your time is running out, because it is. And when the day ends, you'll sleep not with regret, but with stillness. Not because it was easy, but because you showed up like it mattered. Because you trained like it could all end today. And that's what makes you unshakable. 7. Reclaim power with silence and stillness. Strength isn't always seen. Sometimes it's felt, in the calm before a storm, in the pause between provocation and response. The man who moves through chaos without being consumed by it has trained his mind like a blade. He no longer needs to explain, defend, or prove. His silence is not absence, it's authority. Stillness isn't a lack of fire, it's fire under control. When everything demands your attention and you choose not to react, that's not weakness. That's discipline refined. True stillness isn't passive, it's built. It's the result of intentional restraint. In a world that worships noise, the quiet man becomes a mystery. And mystery is power. Because what people can't predict, they can't manipulate. Most lose this power because they give it away through impulsive reactions, endless explanations, and emotional outbursts. They bleed strength every time they speak to be heard instead of to create clarity. Every time they rush to defend their pride, they trade control for momentary relief. But relief fades. Regret stays. The Stoic doesn't chase relief. He trains for control. He doesn't confuse movement with mastery. His power lies not in what he says, but in what he withholds. Because stillness isn't silence from the world, it's silence within. It's being in the middle of conflict and still holding the center. It's standing in discomfort without scrambling to escape it. That kind of stillness isn't born. It's built, day by day, choice by choice, breath by breath. The mistake most make is assuming they need to respond to everything. They equate silence with surrender. But silence used with awareness is the highest form of self-respect. It signals that you won't be pulled into every low-energy exchange. It means your nervous system answers to you, not to someone else's mood. And when you start mastering that pause, something inside shifts. Your boundaries become nonverbal. Your presence begins to speak louder than your words ever did. This isn't about being cold. It's about staying centered. When you stop letting the outside world dictate your inside state, you become immune to manipulation. People try to push you, provoke you, pull you, but you don't move unless you choose to. You respond with clarity, not reflex. You speak when it matters, not when you're triggered. You hold your frame, not to dominate, but to remain free. The world doesn't get to script your reactions anymore. You do. The Stoics lived by this. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire and still reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. His strength came from stillness. Epictetus taught that external things are nothing to us unless we allow them inside. That isn't detachment, it's ownership. You own your attention, you own your reactions, and when you stop being controlled by every shift in your environment, you step into a space very few reach: quiet dominance. This is not about never speaking. It's about knowing when silence is more powerful. It's about training your voice to serve your mission, not your ego. You don't need to prove who you are. You show it by how little moves you. You prove it by how well you hold the line when others unravel. You train it by choosing stillness when reaction is the easier road. That decision repeated enough rewires how you respond to pressure. And that rewiring becomes identity. So the next time tension rises, don't rush to reply. Let the silence stretch. Let discomfort do its work. Breathe through the urge to speak, just to feel heard. Hold your posture, focus your breath. Let the stillness speak for you. This isn't retreat, it's control. It's the kind of self-possession that leaves others unsure, unbalanced, unable to provoke. It's how you reclaim the energy you've been leaking into noise. And it starts now. Not when things calm down, but when you decide to remain calm within them. Not because it's easy, because it's training. 8. Break overthinking with one clear action. Real clarity isn't found by thinking harder, it's earned by acting with precision. The kind of man who moves forward when others freeze doesn't have fewer doubts. He simply doesn't obey them. He doesn't try to control every variable, solve every scenario, or predict every outcome. He does one thing the rest won't. He takes the next step. While others stay tangled in mental loops, running simulations that lead nowhere, he moves. One clear action repeated cuts deeper than 1,000 perfect plans. Because clarity is not a thought, it's a pattern of motion. Overthinking is not a sign of intelligence, it's an addiction to control, a refusal to risk being wrong. And the longer you stay trapped in the mind, the further you drift from momentum. Your thoughts build walls, your doubts reinforce them. Soon, even basic steps feel unsafe. But action, no matter how small, is a hammer. The moment you stop asking what if and start asking what now, the fog begins to lift. Not all at once, but enough to move forward. And that's all you ever needed. The mistake most people make is thinking they need full clarity to begin. They wait for the perfect plan, the perfect words, the perfect moment. That moment never comes. Because clarity doesn't precede movement, it follows it. The Stoic knew this well. He understood that action rooted in principle was worth more than delay rooted in fear. He didn't ask for guarantees. He asked, "What is mine to do?" Then he did it, with precision, without noise. In a world drowning in distraction and doubt, the disciplined mind doesn't seek more thoughts, it seeks fewer. The goal isn't to understand everything. The goal is to understand enough to take the next disciplined step. And that step, even if small, is a declaration. I will not be ruled by hesitation. You train this by refusing to stall, by not indulging the endless spiral of what if and what about. When your mind starts racing, you interrupt it with movement, not wild reaction, calm execution. One choice made with intention does more than hours of mental noise. The Stoics didn't ignore uncertainty. They acted despite it. And their strength wasn't in knowing more, it was in doing what aligned with their code. That's the difference. You don't need to solve the entire problem. You need to face the right direction and start walking. Because direction compounds. Each action sharpens the next. Each step earns confidence. And that confidence isn't loud. It's quiet. It sits beneath the noise, unbothered, because it was built by doing while others were doubting. Overthinking often hides a deeper fear. The fear of being seen starting small, of not having everything figured out. But what's worse, making mistakes in motion or rotting in hesitation? The Stoic answers that with action. Not random motion, but aligned effort. That's what cuts through paralysis. You focus your mind by engaging your body. You shift from stuck to strong, not by solving everything, but by owning one step completely. When the mind spins, ground it with a decision. When the doubt grows loud, silence it with a task. When perfection whispers, respond with execution. This is how you train your way out of mental chaos. Not by thinking deeper, but by choosing cleaner, simpler, clearer. The next right step, the rest can wait. So when you wake up tomorrow, don't write a long list. Don't build a plan that impresses others but paralyzes you. Ask yourself a different question. What is one thing I will complete with calm and focus today, no matter what? Then do it, and repeat, again and again, until the habit of action outweighs the habit of doubt. Until you don't just think differently, you move differently. Because this isn't about finding clarity, it's about becoming clarity. One step at a time. One day at a time, and that step begins now. 9. Honor your word. Speak less, mean more. The man who speaks with restraint builds a reputation that cannot be borrowed, faked, or stolen. His words are not decoration, they are decisions. His promises do not float, they land. Each one is backed by quiet action. Each one is remembered, not for volume but for weight. In a world addicted to noise, this kind of speech is rare. And rare things carry power. To honor your word means more than keeping a promise. It means aligning your identity with your language. You don't speak to impress, you speak to shape. Every sentence becomes a signature. Every commitment becomes a test of integrity. The stronger you become, the less you need to say, because your presence begins to speak for you. And those around you feel it, even if they never name it. But most don't live this way. Most scattered words are like seeds with no soil. They say yes before they think. They promise what they won't follow through on. And then they wonder why their confidence is brittle, why their relationships feel hollow, why their sense of self disappears under pressure. It's not because they lack strength, it's because they never built credibility with themselves. And that credibility starts with speech. The Stoics understood the danger of loose language. Epictetus trained students not just in thought, but in restraint. He warned that every word spoken without reflection was a liability. Marcus Aurelius wrote daily to himself, not to be profound, but to remain precise. They weren't silent out of fear, they were careful out of discipline. They knew the cost of careless talk is not social, it's internal. It fragments the mind, it weakens resolve, it confuses action. To speak less is not to say nothing, it's to say what matters. When you give your word and your actions match it, you don't just build trust, you build strength. Not the kind others can see, the kind that holds when everything else shakes, the kind that lets you walk into chaos and be listened to, even in silence. Because those who keep their word don't need to raise their voice. Their consistency speaks louder than volume ever could. The mistake most make is thinking they can build confidence through hype. But confidence doesn't come from declarations. It comes from completion. The repeated experience of doing what you said you'd do, long after the mood has faded. This repetition becomes identity, and that identity becomes stability. You no longer need to convince others who you are. You live it. In every action, in every pause, in every choice to speak less and mean more. This principle is not flashy. It won't trend. It won't be applauded on a stage, but it will build something most never touch: inner certainty. A center that doesn't move when the external world trembles. And that kind of certainty isn't built in a week. It's built brick by brick. Each time you choose to underpromise and overdeliver, each time you hold your tongue until your actions are ready to speak, each time you let consistency do the talking. So the next time you feel the urge to explain, to declare, to promise, pause. Ask yourself if your actions are already speaking for you. Ask yourself if silence would speak louder. Ask yourself if what you're about to say is the truth or performance. Then speak only what you will live. And live it without needing credit. That's how you become solid. That's how your name begins to carry quiet force. Not because it's attached to power, but because it's attached to precision. You say little. You follow through. You don't chase impressions. You build reality. And when that becomes your default, you won't need to tell the world who you are. It will know. Because you've proven it, word by word, through restraint, repetition, and quiet action. That is what strength sounds like, and that is what it takes to become unshakable. Everything you've just heard is not theory, it's a system. A path, a way to rebuild yourself from the inside out, not with motivation, but with intention. Not with talk, but with training. The Stoics didn't wait to feel ready. They acted with discipline. And if you've followed this far, you already know. You don't need more noise. You need quiet direction, consistent action, and the kind of daily effort that sharpens identity, not just image. You've learned that discomfort is not the enemy, it's the arena. That silence is not weakness, it's power under control. That your words must weigh more than your moods. That every insult, every delay, every inner hesitation is a chance to say, this is training. You've seen how overthinking weakens clarity, how stillness sharpens it, and how the man who remembers death learns to live better. Now the question isn't whether these practices work. The question is whether you'll repeat them. Not once, but every day. One sentence, one decision, one small, deliberate act of emotional control. This is how unshakable men are made, not through breakthrough moments, but through boring, quiet, repeated rituals that most ignore. Start tomorrow before the world wakes. Don't wait for peace to find you. Create it through stillness, restraint, and purpose. And when life pulls you, when emotions rise, when doubt creeps in, return to the sentence. This is training. If any part of this spoke to you, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. What are you training through right now? What habits are you reclaiming? Your story might help another man stay the course. Because we rise higher, not alone, but together. Disciplined, focused, and unshaken.